So I'm sitting in my barber chair last week, and I'm actually a little bit nervous. Not because I'm about to get a haircut, but because right afterwards I'm going to get some photos taken that are going to be headshots and going to be a part of the book. And I don't really enjoy getting my photo taken. I'm sure there's some people that do, but that's not really me. But what happens next is so outrageous, so comical that it's actually a little bit difficult to tell. It's a little bit of a challenging story to tell, but it's pretty funny. Before we do, I'm Jason Elcott. I'm the author of the upcoming book, The Sewing Principle. If you haven't already taken a moment to hit the subscribe button below, please do. You will get the weekly updates, hilarious stories out of my life, and hopefully be encouraged along this journey with me. So thank you for joining me. So I'm chatting with my barber. We're talking about the look that we kind of want to go for with the photos, make sure I look sort of relatable. And we talk about just kind of the cut and what he's going to do there. And we agree that, because we're doing photos, you should probably give my eyebrows a trim. The buzzer clicks on, and what happens next is, I just don't even know how to describe it. I still don't know exactly what happened, but all of a sudden I'm missing half an eyebrow. You can probably see it. You'll probably see it for the rest of the video, but I lost half an eyebrow. What do you do in that situation? You're about to have these photos taken, everything's set up. I'm like, oh my goodness, like what happens next? He was freaking out, I'm freaking out. What do you do when something like that happens? Chuck Swindoll, or Charles Swindoll, is a famous pastor and speaker, and he has a line that's often quoted to him as being said that life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you react. I'm not sure if anybody's ever done the scientific research on that particular 90-10 split, but when you're sitting there in the barber chair going, oh my gosh, I'm missing half an eyebrow, the photo that's potentially going to be immortalized on the back of my book forever, I can just foresee my grandchildren finding the book somewhere, looking at the picture, and somebody going, oh my gosh, is Grandpa missing half an eyebrow? I mean, that's all I can think of in that moment. But there's this idea that, when things happen to you, you get a choice. You get a choice of, well, how are you going to react? Now, I actually immediately credit to myself, whether it's credit is due, but I looked at it, I'm like, this is hilarious. I can't do anything about it, but this is a really funny story. I'm probably going to get to share it or need to share it because I got to tell people what happened, and nobody's going to believe that I got in a fight because that's not really who I am. But so something's happened. Now, how will I react? How do I get to go forward? And I just thought it was an interesting sort of perspective shift and a way to look at what happens in our life. I've been reading a kid's version of the Bible story of Joseph to my children before bed at night, and it's an incredibly fascinating story. And I was just kind of thinking about it as I was thinking about this sort of 90-10, 10% what happens to you, 90% how you react. And I thought about Joseph's life, and I'm like, whoa. Hold on a second. If you aren't familiar with the story of Joseph, you talk about what happened in his life, it's pretty incredible. He was, beat up by his brothers. He was sold into slavery. He eventually ended up being committed of a crime that he didn't commit and convicted of a crime, that he didn't commit, sent to jail, sent to prison. All of this sort of happened in his life. And you look at the story of Joseph and I'm like, oh my gosh, wow, life really happened. Like if you think 90-10, like his 10 was big. I haven't gone through anything even close to that. But then you look at, how did he react? So when he was sold into slavery, he was sold to a gentleman, Potiphar, and ends up becoming sort of the head of his household, it says in the Bible. So you can imagine somebody sitting in the corner and crying about their circumstances isn't going to be elevated to that position. Then he ends up in prison, and he's not sitting there crying about it again because he gets elevated to be the leader of the prison. He ends up running the prison. Then word of his wisdom makes its way up to Pharaoh, who's running Egypt. Joseph ends up talking with Pharaoh and interpreting a dream for him and ends up running the country and actually saving the country from an upcoming famine. It's absolutely incredible. So all of these things that quote unquote happened to Joseph and how he reacted to them, what his attitude was as he came through those stories, he obviously had God's hand working with him through his life, but we also have that too. So, whatever you're facing as you walk through life, I know that God is walking with you. I believe in the tough situations, he's not just walking with you, he's carrying you. Because I know that God would have carried Joseph through some of those situations. Towards the end of the story, Joseph ends up saving his family. He ends up saving his brothers because they come and are able to get food because he was in the right place at the right time, because God put him in the right place at the right time to save Israel, essentially. And it's an incredible story. So God's doing that in your life right now. He wants to work in you and through you. But how we react to the situations, how we allow God to walk with us, how we allow him to kind of come out in our life, it really matters. So for me, it was just a really great reminder and a great shift of perspective, a great opportunity to look at life and go, okay, so what's happening? How can I react? what's God doing here? How can I, continue to live out his will in my life? On a more serious note, does anybody have any idea how long it's going to take for this eyebrow to grow back? I have no idea. I don't know if this takes weeks or months, but you're going to see it in every video going forward now. I can't wait to share that with you. So we'll provide updates as to how the eyebrow is growing back. Have an absolutely awesome week. I look forward to talking with you next week.